well, anything is the first word. Oh, you mean in terms of like what they do as as they program? Like sort of like the
I don't
attribute.
know. Make it up.
Yeah. All right. Well, like what makes a great VB program? I mean, I think that the thing I like about a VB the best, and the thing that makes me like the VB customers the best, is that, and I don't know if this is really going to answer your question, but is that one, I think the philosophy we have a lot of times is sort of an anti-dogmatic, take on things. It's like, it's sort of like we're not rabbing anything. It's like, the most important thing is to be able to get the things you need to do done and to make it easy. To basically enable you, like to make a really great tool, and not impose a lot of like dogma. You should do things this way, and And so I think the great thing about VB is it's very flexible, and our programmers are very flexible, and that's what's so great is that, I mean, it's like you were telling me the story of the the mechanic who wrote the CRM application. It's like, he was getting something done, and it wasn't like he didn't care about whether, architecturally it was perfect, or how CRM apps should be built. It's all about like building things, which I think is really, in a lot of ways, it's sort of the primal. All right, now I'm going to go woo woo. It's like that primal instinct. It's like the reason why people play with blocks and Legos. It's like, I'm just going to put these things together and see what I can build, and like rather than having the grand vision and sketching it all out and that kind of thing. And so I think that's the thing that really makes it a lot of fun to work on VB. It makes programmers there. It makes it fun to work with our customers.
On the other hand, what are a few things, maybe 5 things mistakes that you see VB programmers making?
Yeah.
Since
well, not being dogmatic enough. No. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I cut you off there.
No. I was just thinking that you obviously look at a lot of VB apps that customers write. Right?
Sure.
You have MVPs come through here, and they show you stuff. You meet with customers in the building 20, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I'm sure you've seen a lot of VB apps, and some of them could be improved.
Right. Well, yeah.
So I wonder
what are things
from the heart of Redmond?
Right. What are the things to don't do or don't avoid?
Things to think about
right.
when you're developing a VB app.
Well, I mean, the good news is a lot of times it's like a lot of times when people make mistakes, it's like I think of it as our failure. So it's like, oh, they don't understand how this works. Like overloads versus shadows, and nobody understands how that works, and that's just our fault. It was a mistake, kind of how we approach the problem. But I think it's like there is, I mean, the rap, every stereotype has an element of truth. And and the truth is, it's like we do make it so easy that it is possible to go way off without really, I mean, there's sort of without thinking about it, because before I came to Microsoft, I spent a couple summers teaching programming to high school students, gifted high school students, in Turbo Pascal, actually. And, there was that sorting that the kids would do, and did the two groups, the kids who, sort of would think about it and work on it, and then there were the hackers in the bad sense, where they would, if it didn't work, they would just bang on it, change things randomly around. And, that is, it is a downside to VB. We make it so easy. It's like you could just, oh, I hit this exception, I'm just going to start fiddling with my code and not understanding. I think that, I mean, I see that even within Microsoft. C++ programmers work on the team. Sometimes that is, what will distinguish one programmer from another is it's like when something happens, or when I'm working on something, it's like, am I thinking about it? Do I kind of, I don't know, feel like I'm going kind of wandering off into incoherence, but
Boyd over in the Xbox Live team talked about what one of his developers, who was way above everybody else, and he says he writes unit tests.
Right.
He, in other words, he thinks about the whole system before he even starts writing code, and then he writes things. He writes testing. He writes his tests, and he thinks about testing.
Right.
So he turns over relatively bug-free code.
Well, yeah, I mean, although it's even more, it's like everybody's methodology is different. Like some people are really good at that. I think I wrote one time in a weblog or something, or an interview, I was saying, what do I hate more than anything else is testing. Like, I mean, it's good. I do it because I have to, but, oh my God, it drives me nuts. And it's, and so my methodology is like a little different in terms of, how I approach it and how I like it. But I think the most important thing is to have a sense of curiosity, to think about, essentially to think about what you're doing. And so like this developer in Xbox, he thinks about, okay, here's this function and how am I going to make sure it works right? And, then he goes and does his unit tests and that kind of thing. And I mean, I think that...
Or Joel Spolsky. I'm reading Joel Spolsky's new book that came out. And he says you should write specs.
Right. Everybody's got their thing, yeah.
And he has a very specific methodology for writing specs so that you really think through the user interaction from a user standpoint, not a programmer interaction.
Right.
And it's very interesting and a compelling argument. So it'll be interesting to see how the webloggers react to this book when more people get
it out there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that I was reading somebody talking about, they were talking about debugging or something like that, and they said something that I was really resonated, because when back in the old days when I did a lot more development, I was consistently like the top bug fixer for a couple of years in my group, and the key with debugging was not 90% of it was putting the breakpoint in the right place. Like that was it. It was like as long as you knew where to put the breakpoint, then it's like you could fix bugs so much more quickly, but that required you kind of had to stop and think, okay, where would I want to put a breakpoint to catch this problem in action? And I would work sometimes with other people, and it would be okay, I'm just going to step, and maybe it's going to take me longer to figure it out. And it is that kind of thing where it's like, VB is about like just going, let's go. But then also the best, I think, the mistake sometimes to make is at some points you have to stop. And that's part of where the iterations in iterative development come from, is you go, and then you stop and you go, okay, where am I now? What am I doing? How is this going? And then maybe, sometimes you throw it all out and go, all right, I learned my lesson on this one, let's do it again. And, I always remember the stories, I guess, from the early days of id with their Quake engine. They used to just write an engine and then they would throw it out and start over again. It's just like, just keep, throwing it out. But each time you think about what you're doing, and it's like, okay, what are the lessons? Learning, I guess, so.